So here is another way of showing ER diagram. Don't forget, here is entities are shown as entity name, and then underneath all the attributes of that entity. So it really doesn't matter which way you go, same notation. Right? Because with your ER diagram comes a document that has got the name of every entity and the attributes of every entity in front of it. Right? We talked about two things, strong entities and weak entities. The strong entities exist by themselves. Weak entities exist only because of some other entity. For example, here, client and preferences. Preferences alone cannot exist if you don't have any client, because that refers to the client. And what it means here, with the weak and strong entities, you don't have to create two entities here. You can put the preferences as the two attributes of the preferences as two attributes of the table client. So you don't need to necessarily create strong and weak entities. You can, if you like, but there are two different ways of doing the same thing. So I can put the preference type and maximum rent with the client as two of the attributes of the client. So which way you go, it all depends on you. It doesn't make any much difference in this scenario. Entities, we said, are things, objects, items for which we are interested to collect data for our organization. And depending on which organization we have, of course, we'll have different entities. So if you're working for Department of Fishery, so your database on fish has got the fish as one entity, rivers as another entity, etc. If you're working in the university environment and you're building a database for a student, so you will have entity a student, subjects, etc. What's very important, however, here is that what you have learned so far is that the relationships are established through foreign keys. Through foreign keys. So, for example, branch number in the table staff establishes the relationship between a staff and the branch. Right? So that means you knowing the branch number in a row of data in a table staff, you can find the branch address by searching the branch address, the branch table based on that branch number. So you can find that information. So that's how the relationship works. Sometimes your relationships have got also data attached to themselves. See, the relationship between a staff and a branch doesn't have any other data attached to it. It's just a relationship. It just says this staff works in this branch, and if you want to know the address of the branch, pick up the branch number, search in the branch table, find the address. Sometimes relationships have got attached to them attributes. Okay, I know it's a bit confusing, but when we start really looking at scenarios and problems, you'll see how it works. Look at another example. Look at an example in this university environment. A student as an entity, a student number is the primary key of that table of students, and the student name, address, telephone number are the other entities, other attributes of the table of staff. And now, think of subjects that you enroll in. So a table subject has got the entity, you've got an entity called subject, and then that corresponds to a table in your database, and in that entity you have subject number and subject name, for example. Subject number is the primary key of the table subject, and now you have got these two entities, subject and a student. What happens is that the students enroll in different subjects. So you need to store the relationship between the subject and the student table. Right? So you can do a line from subject to a student, or from a student to the subject. Does this make sense? Yeah? Okay, let's see if we can get this thing working. Is it better? Thank you. Yeah. student, and then we've got subject. And if you want to know, is it all right? Is it Zoom? Can you see it? Or have we done? There we go. So when a student enrolls in a subject, you establish a relationship, right? So now let's think of, let's go into a bit more detail so you can see what's going on. Student, number, first name, last name, address, and telephone number. Can you see it? Or is it too small? Yeah? Okay. All right. If you can see it, ask your friend next to you and I'll tell you. Whatever. And a subject. And then see an optometrist maybe tomorrow. Subject number. And then. Can you all see what I'm writing? Yeah? So I can be very confident when I'm driving my car from the car park out that all of you see me coming, yeah? I will have no problem with that. Okay? So, then zoom, maybe I can zoom a little bit more. There we go. Better. It was not your eyes, it was the focus here on the right. Okay, so the primary key was the student number, and the underline, the item, the attribute, that's the primary key, by just putting a line underneath it. So now, you know, there are two entities, two tables in this database. One is called a student, another one is called subject. The primary key is the student number and the subject number. Okay, and now you've got this relationship that you want to establish. Looking at this scenario here, there's no relationship because in the table 1, there's no foreign key. In the second entity or second table, there's no foreign key. So how do you establish the relationship that the student takes subjects? One way to go about it is to add subject number as another attribute of a table of students. See that? So what it means, each student can enroll in one subject. Correct? One subject. Right? So and now we can say, here's the relationship. Another thing that's important is with this, okay, and this is, we call it enroll. A student enroll in a subject. Am I okay with this or shall I? Oh my God. Right? This is the name of the relationship, enroll. So now you can see with the enroll relationship, there are other data items that are attached, like date of enrollment, right? A cost of enrollment for one subject. Let's assume that we just store the date of enrollment. Where would you store the date of enrollment? Of course, probably with here, with the table of students. However, this kind of design just allows you to store one subject enrollment with each student. Right? This is not true in reality. In reality, that's not what happens, because you will be enrolling in several subjects. Right? Have a look at here. Here we've got two entities, newspaper and the property for rent. So this company advertises the property for rent each week with a newspaper. And as you can see here, so the newspaper advertises certain property, but the attributes of this relationship, a relationship can have attributes, is the date of advertisement and the cost. In reality, relationships don't have attributes. If you see a relationship that is attached to certain attributes, you need, or has some attributes related to that relationship, you need to convert that relationship into an entity. This is actually one of the most difficult parts to explain at the beginning, but I give you some tricks, some magical tricks that you can apply at the end of the lecture, and you'll be okay. All right? So for time being, what I want you to do is that sometimes when you establish relationships, there are certain attributes that are hanging around, and you can't restore it with any of those existing entities. Okay.